How's it going everyone, Andy here, back at you with another 4K video. This will be our final video for E3 2018, where I will talk about my feelings for E3 as a whole, as well as all of my thoughts on the independent press conferences for every single company. And I'm just going to give my thoughts, quick thoughts on every single one of them, how I think they did, and what are some of the highlights and basically my disappointments in this year's E3. I'm going to be going by the order of the publisher's schedule, so let's just go right into it. EA was a major disappointment, without a doubt the worst one for me. Like everything about their press conference, from the way how it was structured to the way how they present themselves throughout the whole conference, it was a very long one and there was no reason for it to be that long. My biggest criticism towards it in general is just the fact that there was a lack of gameplay. Most of the time it was just these guys talking with nothing really to show. Most of the time they show static images at the background, which makes me wonder why the hell did they even rent it out such a big screen if they're not going to take full advantage of it. There was a few highlights here and there, like Unravel 2 and that indie game, I forgot what was the name. I think was it Sea of Solitude or something like that. Those two games, the EA originals, was basically the highlight for me. Everything else that they have shown either doesn't interest me or it was just too boring for me to even care. And of course, I will mention this, their bastardization on Command & Conquer was just wrong. Like, I'm not even going to go deep into it. It just felt wrong. It was boring. And most importantly, I felt like it was just an insult to the series. And regarding Anthem, it looked cool, but my biggest problem, again, lack of gameplay. And what they did show was very brief, just about when it was getting interesting, they cut it away. So yeah, EA was an absolute disappointment for me, like without a doubt the worst one out of all. That's all I've got. Next up, it's Microsoft's. Now Microsoft's one to me was actually very good. Like I felt like it was even better than last year. Not that their last year one was bad per se, I just felt like this year, I think it was structured a little better and the pacing was very good. It was pretty much Nintendo's approach. It was rapid fire, games. And one of the best things I liked about it was that Microsoft have shown that they have acquired multiple studios, and that in itself is very good, because one of the biggest issues that Microsoft has been having at the moment is their lack of compelling exclusives. So hopefully buying some of these studios would equal that, or we'll be seeing more and more exclusive games coming out of them. Now it does seem like despite that Microsoft has just acquired these studios, I have a very strong feeling obviously most of these games that's been made would either come out at the end of the Xbox One's life cycle, or they could potentially be launch titles for their next system, which they did actually tease. But other than that, I just thought the pacing and the overall structure was really well done. They've announced a lot of games, definitely the most out of the three. And a few surprise announcements here and there, like DMC5, Cyberpunk 2077. But I will say this, most of the announcements are also available on the PS4. So technically, while they did announce the most games it's not that many of them are exclusives. And when it comes to exclusive, much like what I've already said about my impression of their conference, it did felt like their exclusives so far, at the very least of what they've announced is still very predictable in terms of like what we were expecting. It's like new Halo, new Gears, new Forza. There was a surprise announcement with Battletoads, but then again, that one we didn't see anything out of. But overall, I thought Microsoft's one was very solid. Moving on, we've got Bethesda. Bethesda's one to me was kind of short, but in the same time, I thought it was straight to the point. New Doom, new Wolfenstein, and of course they showed a bit more of Fallout, like the newest Fallout, and then like obviously a tease of a new Elder Scrolls. So all of that I thought was okay. I don't really have much to say about Bethesda's one, other than the fact that it was just simple, straight to the point, and it gets the job done. Then moving on to Square Enix. Now this is the one out of all the press conferences that I literally, well technically their one was in the press conference, it was just a little short kind of like digital event, much like what Nintendo does. But the biggest problem with their one is simply the fact that most of the stuff that they've shown there was already presented at Microsoft's conference, like Kingdom Hearts 3, Just Cause and everything. And they simply just re-showed those trailers again. And if you cut those out the ones that we've already seen, the only one that really surprised me is just that there was apparently a new game that they're working on with Platinum Games, which I'm down for. and they showed off Dragon Quest at the beginning. But other than that, yeah, the rest is either stuff that we already know or the stuff that's already been shown in other conferences. So I literally felt like they really could have just give some of those games to either Sony or Microsoft just to show it off. There's really no reason for you to actually do like, kind of like a little event like that. Square Enix to me was probably the second disappointed one out of everybody else. First being EA, of course. But other than that, it wasn't like bad, it was just disappointing for me. Then we go to Ubisoft, which is actually my personal favorite one this year. Their one was basically the same, like they took the same stage and everything like that. They opened it with Just Dance, but which took a little long for me. But other than that, everything that they've shown, some of them I was really excited for, like the new Trials, Skulls and Bones looks really good. Beyond Good and Evil 2, while looked great and everything, but the one thing that didn't really work for me, unfortunately, is the fact that they didn't really show much gameplay. What tiny little bit that they did show looked interesting, but again, it's really hard for me to get hyped over like little snippet clips every here and there. And the whole thing of they're looking for talents, like when Joseph Gordon-Levitt came out, I'm not too sure if this is a sign yet that the game actually still got a long way to go, and that this is actually still considered the beginning part. I don't know if that's the case, but the way how they're showing that they're looking for talents and everything like that to like input their ideas into the game, yeah, while it's great and everything for independent creators, but I still felt like this game, is it really that off? Like, is it not coming anytime soon? So I'm a bit worried about that. Then some of the other games that they showed, yeah, I was about to say Star Fox. Starlink Battle for Atlas was one of those games that when they showed it off last year, I was already somewhat intrigued by it, but the announcement that Fox is going to be in it just made me that much more happy. Like, what I've seen of it looks great so far. I've tuned into the Treehouse event, and the game looks like it's basically No Man's Sky done right in my eyes. That's what I think it is, and I like the toy collecting part of it, so I'm definitely keeping an eye on that game. Assassin's Creed, honestly, I'm not the biggest Assassin's Creed guy, but even then I thought, hey, set in Rome, this looks pretty cool. So all in all, I thought like, Ubisoft's one was actually pretty good. It was very well paced and everything. Nothing to really complain about, like just a few things here and there. I think the major issue that a lot of people had was how the setup was. Basically, they had some serious issue with their mics, and sometimes when they were walking off stage, you could clearly still hear their voices, and I'm like, okay, that seems the setup just wasn't very good overall. So that's another little minor nitpick I had with that. Then goes PlayStation, which is one that I personally thought was okay, but very, very underwhelming. And the biggest problem with Sony's one yet is that I was a bit confused of not knowing whether or not if they wanted to do a live show or did they wanted to kind of like just do a digital event, much like Nintendo, because it seems like they were kind of going for that middle ground, and it really didn't work. The first 35 minutes, minus the Last of Us Part 2 gameplay, it was very boring. Like the very first half hour of it, it was like, then when they start showing games like Ghost of Tsushima and everything, that's where like it kind of took off, and I felt like, yeah, looked very good. And then a few announcements here and there, obviously Resi 2 and Neo 2 as well, like all of that looked okay. Neo 2 didn't really have gameplay, but that's fine. But then came to the big one that some people are really excited to see, like Death Stranding again, and I've already expressed in my impression of Sony's conference where I felt Death Stranding's part was very weak for me, because this is the fourth showing, and by the fourth showing I was expecting like that this time they're going to give us some real actual gameplay just to show us what the game's really about. And unfortunately what I saw during all that time was just walking and essentially climbing. It rarely showed anything, and I'm getting quite frustrated with the way how they're showing this game now. It just felt like you're constantly just teasing people. Sure, there's some mysteries here and there about the game and everything like that, but I want to see some actual gameplay. And to see that this game, despite being shown off the fourth time, we still have no real idea for how it plays, and that's becoming a little bit frustrating for me. So yeah, Death Stranding is definitely one of those titles that disappointed me, and just in terms of like the fact that they didn't really show anything. But who knows, maybe somewhere down the line they finally will show some gameplay, and I will be back on board again. But in terms of right now, I haven't got any kind of feeling towards it anymore. Then we've got Spider-Man, and Spider-Man in itself is a game that I've already said before, I'm looking forward to it, I can't wait to play it, and I really felt like they didn't need to show what they showed, because what they showed was that they literally showed off every single villain, which was something that I would have been much prefer if I would just play the game and figure that part myself. I felt like Insomniac picked the wrong section of the game to actually show, but that's just me though. The overall Sony's one was, again, I personally think it was okay. Nothing great, nothing terrible, just a bit in between. And then finally the last one, that being Nintendo. Now Nintendo's one is one of those that give me conflicting opinions. On one hand, I did really like some of the stuff that they showed, yeah, but on the other hand, I do kind of get the criticism of what other people were saying, and primarily the Smash section taking too long, and that some of their better title, or some of the titles that people are really hyped for, has a no-show. But this is primarily due to the fact that when Nintendo walked into E3 2018, they did said that the event is going to primarily focus on 2018 releases, and for that I personally felt it wouldn't have made much sense if they showed off Bayo 3 or they showed off Metroid Prime 4. I know people would have taken anything like a teaser and everything, but still, Nintendo, that's just the way how they are. If the game is not ready, they don't feel comfortable showing it, and in that sense I could kind of see why. But still though, despite that, when they showed off the Smash Brothers segment, even though I do agree that it's a bit too long, but I was really geeking out and hyping it through the roof when I was watching it. Like all those characters that's revealed, everybody's coming back, and even just little touches, hearing him say what's different and everything. I was entertained throughout the whole part, and I've already said things like Daemon X Machina I'm really looking forward to, the new Fire Emblem looks great. Pretty much everything that I was expecting them to show made it. And to see Dragon Ball FighterZ being confirmed as well, that was a third-party game I've always wanted to be on the Switch. I'm so glad that it's come in. The new gameplay videos looks really good. But all in all, Nintendo's one, like Sony's, yeah, it was okay. I still thought it was decent in the end. It's just like certain things could have been trimmed off, and I thought it was somewhat of a step down compared to their last one. All in all, I thought this year's E3 was not bad. It was pretty good. I think it was definitely better than last year's, especially with some of the announcements that they've actually made this year. But still, it's not, I wouldn't say it's one of the best years. It's like, it's a good year. I think as a whole, I would say it was a good year. There wasn't really that many stinkers, with the only lone exception being EA. But anyway guys, those are my overall thoughts of what I think about E3 2018. Feel free to leave your comment below, and as always, if you like this video, consider subscribing and giving it a like. If not, you can hit a dislike. This is Andy from 4K Downtime signing off. Have a good one.